Let's go to Randy Chevrier now. Love this guy. I really do. Chevy joins us from Calgary.
Hey,
how you doing, Randy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Are you glad you're retired and not having to deal with us anymore as a CFL player? What's your take on the last 6 months in the CFL?
Oh, it's been a little crazy. Hey, I don't know if you're ever glad you retired when you leave pro sports. I loved the career and I loved what it did for me, and I'm a big fan now. So, the last few months have been quite a whirlwind, and it is unfortunate that the CFL is in the situation where we're at now, where they're not going to be playing this year. It's for me, when it's in our lifetimes, we've never seen it before, and it's hard because when you're such a fan of the CFL, obviously being a former player, but just as a fan, if I'm speaking purely as a fan, I know there are people that are just CFL fans, and hockey doesn't fill our cup, soccer doesn't fill our cup, NBA basketball doesn't fill our cup, NFL doesn't fill our cup. What fills our cup is Canadian football. And the fact that we don't get to see it being played this year, for sure it's tough on us. But then when I think about it in the player's perspective, that's a really tough blow for the guys. And unfortunately, I don't think it was just this year that led to where we are. It was a series of years, a series of collective bargaining agreements leading up to this once in a lifetime occurrence where everything that was wrong with what was going on in the CFL was basically put on spotlight. And then unfortunately we have the result we have. So it's unfortunate.
Well, like you say, everything hit at once. And you know what? I've learned a lot in the last 6 months, Chevy. One is, like you say, there's a lot of people that the CFL is the only league they follow, and they are reeling right now. Like, there's way more of them than I thought. Now, having said all of that, you and I were together for a brief time, but it was a good time. I would have liked to have had the chance to visit more than we did. Yeah, but we knew the CFL could be better. Those were some of the conversations that we had. Now they got the opportunity to come back stronger. Are you thinking much about what this league could do to come back stronger, or should do?
Well, I've always had ideas, unfortunately, when you're on the player's side of it, and really everyone is on the outside looking in, unless you are someone with money that has a financial stake in the league, you don't get to have a say. You really don't get to have a say. But, if I look at it on the global perspective, the Players Association and the league, need to be more harmonious. The league relies on the players to sell the game. Whether it's off-season guys going into schools, whether it's doing that extra little bit of work that's above and beyond playing football, the league needs to establish that relationship and can't just call on the guys when it needs them. But then when it comes to a situation where they need to negotiate collectively something that's fair for everyone, really treat them like meat. And that's kind of historical in many sports leagues, and many sports leagues that generate billions and billions of dollars have the opportunity, because of strong finances within their players associations, to really create that situation. Whereas the CFL, for the longest time, the ownership is Goliath and the players are David, constantly being stepped on, especially when it comes to collective bargaining agreements, matters of money, and so on and so forth. But the problem is, if you don't invest in your players and you don't make them feel like they're special, and the relationship is always adversarial, how can you rely upon them to sell your league more than what they're contractually obliged to do? And I think that's a big problem. I think, when players negotiate with general managers their contracts, it can be very adversarial, because general managers have salary caps to worry about, and players want the most, for their limited careers. And so there is this adversarial relationship. But it can't be that way when you're dealing with the league and the players as a whole, as an entity. If you see them as part of your marketing strategy, you can't treat them poorly and then expect them to show up for you when you need it most. And I think we saw that. I think we saw that this year when, unfortunately, Commissioner Ambrosi got called out in Parliament as to why there was not one player there basically advocating on the league's behalf. because they never settled that relationship. And that relationship has been tenuous at best for years and years and years. And so that needs to be fixed. That needs to be fixed so that they can go forward together. And I think that would be good for the league. I mean, I have so many ideas, Rod, but I mean, I'm just like everyone else. I have opinions. Doesn't mean that they're right, but it's things that I wish I could see for the league to go forward, for sure.
Well, that's one. Give me a couple more on a better relationship between the owners. Yeah, what else you got?
Well, listen, Rod. You got teams that are community owned, like Saskatchewan and Edmonton and Winnipeg, and they're doing fairly well. And then you got teams that are owned privately that, for their ownership, for the investment they make, they want to get some sort of return at the end of every year. And that makes sense. When you're a business owner, you want a return. So unless the league goes to some sort of centralized ownership model or some sort of revenue share among the owners that allows them to do the work they need to do in the off season. So what I see, I've played for Edmonton, I've played for Saskatchewan, and I've played for Calgary. Now, 2 community-owned teams and 1 privately owned team. All fantastic organization, all have people that work really hard to bring, to put the best product on the field and to fill the stands. But why does Saskatchewan and Edmonton consistently have more people in the stands? Obviously, bigger stadium in Edmonton, but just in terms of the amount of people there. I think it's because of the work they do in the off season and the work they're allowed to do. They're not worried about turning a major profit, and I know that nor are the Stampeders, but they have to turn some sort of profit for their ownership. But I know there's guys in Saskatchewan and Edmonton that they do community outreach programs that are funded by the teams because they need to get rid of that money. They're nonprofit organizations. So these guys travel all over northern Alberta, all over Northwest Territories. They're promoting whatever cause they're doing, whether it's bullying in school, whether it's domestic violence initiatives, whatever cause they promote, they have the funding for, and that trickles down into brand recognition for the teams. And then obviously there's a relationship with players. If players are coming to your little tiny town in the middle of nowhere, and we see it all over Saskatchewan, people are going to relate to that. People are going to want to go watch that because this player has taken the time to come there. Teams like Calgary and the privately run teams, they do have funds for that type of activity, but it's limited. If you want to turn a profit, where are you going to cut your budget from? You can't cut from salary cap. You can't cut from football ops because football is the product. So you're going to cut where you don't think it matters. But I really believe, again, I spent years in Calgary, 11 years doing outreach in schools with different programs. And I know the power of that one-on-one relationship, going into a classroom, talking with kids, and then going home and saying, hey, Mom, let's go watch a game. The more you can do that, the more marketing you get. So if these teams that need to turn a profit have to create some profit, how can we get them funds to keep running those initiatives in the off season? How can we get guys not just promoting the Stampeders within Calgary and maybe Airdrie, Cochrane, and Okotoks, which are the surrounding areas, but how can we get them all throughout southern Alberta so that everywhere people go in southern Alberta, little towns like Oyen and Standard, people know, hey, I want to go watch the Stampeders. I saw that in Saskatchewan, how wonderful it is that guys all year round, guys like Jorgen Hoos, when Spencer Moore was there, all these guys, the work they did for the community, but it benefits the team. Listen, the Calgary Stampeders, if I'm taking that for as a model, I live in Calgary. I'm a big Stamps fan. Of course, I spent 11 years here. Listen, the toast of the league in terms of football operations, the toast of the league in terms of records. I mean, every year you're going to put Stamps on your top list and be a Grey Cup contender. I don't care whether you're a Rider fan, a BC line, you're going to say, yeah, we got to watch the Stamps. If we can't beat the Stamps, chances are we can't get a Grey Cup. Everyone knows that. From when I got here in 2005 all the way till I left and still beyond, they're a Grey Cup contender. Why can't they sell out? Is it because they're not good? Is it because the ticket office isn't doing their job? No. Everything's there, but they need that extra little bit. And that extra little bit comes in the off season, but it takes funds. You want to start a community program in Calgary? Well, they need it to be sponsored because they can't just send guys out with, doing that stuff. So really, I think that's important, that the league becomes aware of how important the grassroots initiative is in Calgary. Or in the CFL, excuse me. Because so many people say, well, kids watch NFL. So how do you counter that? Well, you got to get in front of them. And the only way you get in front of them, unfortunately, it takes money. And I know, like, I've had a couple of battles with people on Twitter and stuff. They say, well, we don't want to fund the teams. The Saskatchewan fans say, well, why should we pay for the Montreals of the world? Why should we pay for the other teams of the world? I say, fine. You don't want a central ownership. But the problem is this. You get teams like BC, Toronto, Montreal, that they are bleeding money when they are competing. Forget about this year, how much money they're going to lose. What happens when you lose those three teams? Because we don't have this long lineup of multimillionaires in Canada that think CFL is a sound investment. What happens when you're down to 6 teams in a league? Does everyone from Saskatchewan show up and say, oh, we're playing the Stamps for the 7th time this year? So there's this trickle-down effect. Unfortunately, the CFL is a different type of sport. Not everyone's lining up to own a franchise. There's not enough cities in Canada where you can just pop franchises in. If one city loses a franchise, you got to keep the franchises that are there alive, and you got to figure out a way to work together. And that's amongst the ownership groups, and that's also owners to players. So, those are some of the things, but it's not stuff that we haven't heard from others. It's just, we have to be creative, and it can't be the old, well, we're not going to tell them how the league is run because it's our books and we got to keep them closed. Like, the CFL has to become transparent. I've also talked about, The Rock. He's now in charge of the XFL, and he's going to give it a stab in the States. And I do really believe that there is space for football beneath the NFL in the U.S. And I don't see that it would be a bad thing if there would be some sort of partnership there, some sort of Champions League. Obviously, you'd have to work out rules and this and that, but why not associate with that? When Vince McMahon tried to buy the CFL, why didn't the CFL agree? Because it was Vince McMahon. And people but it's true. Like, whatever you know of him.
I'm loving it, Randy. It's ego. You can say it however you want.
But that's the thing, Rod. For whatever you know of Vince McMahon, he has a public persona, and some people like him, and some people don't like him. And if you don't like him, you're not going to open the door to him. I don't care how much money he has. You're going to. It's like the gentleman that tried to buy an NHL franchise, the guy that owned BlackBerry, whatever his name was.
Jim Belsilli.
They did not like him. He had the money. They didn't want to listen to him because they didn't like him. So it shut down the door. But now the dynamic has changed. For better or for worse, for whether it's deserved or not, I think it is. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, whatever he touches turns to gold. If Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson walks to Microsoft tomorrow and says, I want to speak to Bill Gates is going to say, yeah, I'll talk to him. If Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson walks to the White House and says, I want to talk to the president will talk to him. He's in a position right now where whatever he does and whatever he touches turns to gold. Would you not want to be affiliated with that in some sort of way if there was an offer? Of course you would. Somehow, yes, the CFL will change. It might evolve. It might look a little different than your grandpa's CFL and my grandpa's CFL. But my current CFL looks different than my grandpa's CFL. And in 20, 30 years, my kid's CFL is going to look different than my CFL. So we have to make sure that we're not just sticking to tradition for tradition's sake. Again, I said it on Twitter once. I said, if you ever watch that movie Cars, this beautiful little town right on the side of the road, Radiator Springs, no one ever heard of because they built the interstate right down the road and everyone drives right by. So how do you get the attention to the little mom and pop shop that's a CFL? Well, you got to start creating some partnerships that work. So
right, it's work and it's fun, right? But unfortunately, we're way over on time, and I do have to break. But from our viewers, already? Jeremy Johnson writes in, love this interview. Mike in Toronto says, I'll say it again, the NFL dreams for a Canadian market. I don't think so. I watch Roger Goodell's news conference every year at Super Bowl. He's not interested in coming to Canada in any way, shape, or form that I can see. Wayne in Victoria, BC. Well said, Randy. Even though you're a stamp, I like your sentiment. That's from Wayne. Listen, Randy, like I say, we're over time. Can we bring you back and continue this discussion? Yeah.
Can I say two things?
Sure.
One, Chris Sweet is listening. He told me to not make a fool of myself. So, Chris, I know you're listening. Old O-line coach for Stamps and the Riders. I'm right here. Miss you, bud. And two, any players listening, Life Choice Dynamics has been in Calgary. They help players out, help them, just give them some guidance in terms of career pathways and post-football and during football, things to look for. If you're a player listening out there and you kind of don't have anywhere to turn, Google Life Choice Dynamics The number's there, Jack Fulton's there, and you can at least have someone that can help maybe guide you and steer you to find something while you're waiting for this attend, because that's important too. These guys have families, these guys have mouths to feed, they have mortgages, they have bills to pay, and right now they put so much in the football basket that they're probably reeling more than anyone else as terms to how to get that next paycheck and how to make things work. Not everyone has a plan, and you and I both know that, Rod. So Life Choice Dynamics, just Google it, guys. If you're looking, Jack will, there's guys in the States, but Jack will point you in a direction. Hopefully we can get you some help if you need.
Life Choice Dynamics. You can also put it in your Facebook search window. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. I've been helping Jack out with that. So, yeah. And for Coach Sweet, who's in Washington, head down and give Trump a slap for us. Will you, Coach Sweet? He's just down the street from where Sweeter is. Okay. Chevy, keep in touch, my man. Let's do it again soon.
Fellas, anytime. Have a good day. Thank you.
All right. Long snapper extraordinaire, Randy Chevrier. And we'll be right back. Everybody loved that interview. That got them out of their seats. That's something Chevy does.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.